let's do this. Okay, so for ring specs, a lot of different specifications here for your ring, and I'll try to make these as clear as possible as we're going through this. Your ring band, first off. Ring band must be between 0.06 and 0.1 thick. What that means is we have to look below at letter B. So we're going to scroll down here and look at letter B. So here's letter B. It's the circular portion of it as it sits on your finger. It has to be between 0.06 and 0.1. This is on a standard style ring, which just means it's a normal round ring. This is a stadium style ring. It's more of that class ring style. It has a big, large top on it and then tapers down to a smaller bottom. It's the same on that band has to be between 0.06 and 0.1 thick. So that's kind of that first one. The main reason for this is on those first test rings I showed you the other day that I printed out, if it was less than 0.06, it was just too thin and it was too weak. If it was more than 0.1, it was just really fat and it felt like it was a washer on your finger. So we had to go with some happy medium there. And I want to give you some leeway in your design. So we give you a kind of a range there to fit in. I don't want to make you all make it exactly this, but I want to give you some leeway there in your design. All right. Moving on up. On a standard ring, the ring band must be between 0.1 and 0.4 wide. So, okay, now that's talking just about this one, the standard ring. It's the width of the ring. So as your ring's setting on your finger, obviously your finger would go through here like so. As your ring's setting on your finger, it has to be between 0.1 and 0.4 wide. 0.1 is pretty narrow. That's a very narrow little ring. 0.4 gives you a pretty wide ring that you can put some details on and put some different things into that ring. Okay? On a stadium type ring, the widest part of the band can be 0.6 wide. That's letter C down below. And the narrow portion of the band must be between 0.1 and 0.3. That's E down below. All right, so let's go back down here. So the widest part here at the top, here, and shown here on the side view here, that can be up to 0.6 inches wide. That's pretty big. It's over a half an inch wide. That's a good sized ring. But then the narrow portion, where it narrows down to it down here on the bottom, has to be between 0.1 and 0.3. So there's kind of your different specifications on that and how that's going to look there. All right. Any questions on that part of it so far? I think that's pretty clear, I hope. Just refer to the pictures when you're thinking about your design. All right, next. Where there's a slot or a groove across the entire width of the band, the thinnest part of the band can be no less than 0.06 thick. That's letter F here. So here it's showing some little grooves. Let me zoom in there a little bit. Excuse me. So here it's showing some little grooves that cut in there, just little notches. They go across the entire width of the entire band. So basically that's creating a weak spot in your band. So again, the minimum thickness here still has to be that minimum width of the band, which is 0.06. So obviously you have to make your band thicker than 0.06 if you want to do some notches cut into it, because you're going to have to allow for those notches and still allow 0.06 to be behind there. Okay? Let's go back. Whoa! Hello. Did not want to do that. All right, let's go back up there. The thickest part of the band can be no more than 0.2 inches on a stadium style ring. All right? So here on the stadium style ring, this, I already told you it was between 0.06 and 0.1, but on a stadium style ring up here on the top, it's going to be thicker than that. So you can be up to 0.2 inches wide on this thickest portion. The way that we'll measure that, we'll measure it from the thickest portion out from the corner of it, just as I've done here, perpendicular to the circle, and that'll give you a measurement. That has to be less than 0.2. All right? Any questions there? Let's go down to our next section. All right, next. Lettering or other designs that are cut into the ring is what this whole part's about. Lettering designs extruded or subtracted from the surface of the ring must be at least 0.03 across. That's letter A down below. So here I have a BO and have a little Japanese or Chinese symbol there. Every part of those have to measure at least 0.03 wide. And these are cut into the ring on this one. On this design over here, the one I showed you the other day on CAD, that's risen from the surface of the ring, but again, it has to be a minimum of 0.03 wide on all those things. Anything less than 0.03 just won't print and won't turn out. right. Next. Okay. For lettering, a bold block text works well. So if I go back here to CAD and I do style, remember the other day we just did our Arial style and we just set it to bold and that made it a nice thick style. But you don't have to just use Arial. You can scroll down here through other types of text and find other ones. That one's a pretty fat text. Besides little tiny gaps there, you may have to increase that a little bit, but that text would work well and look good on a ring. Scrolling on down through, obviously this text is very thin. It would not work well. But there's other options in there that work well. This would work pretty good except for maybe the little thin parts of the B, those thin parts. You may have to increase that a little bit. But it's not necessarily you have to stick with that one Arial style of text. You can find other text that would obviously work. Those there are pretty thick. Those would work. All pretty thick. That's pretty a thick text. These little thin ones definitely would not work. Okay. Next on that, for lettering, typically a 0.18 inch tall letter works well, and that's what we did the other day. You may be able to go smaller than that if your text is a little bit fatter, or you may have to go taller than that if your text is a little bit skinnier. But that kind of all determines once you explode your text there and measure how wide it is. All right. Lettering must be extruded or subtracted at least 0.03 deep into it or out from the surface. So again here, the amount that it goes in has to go in at least 0.03, or if it's sticking out, it has to stick out at least 0.03. So with that being said, how thick does the band of your ring have to be here to have text that's 0.03? What's the minimum thickness of your band? So if our text goes in 0.03, how thick does your entire band have to be? 0.09, because you have to have 0.06 behind it. Well, and actually though, it can be less, and we'll look at that here in a second. Actually, we're going to change that. So now we get to our next part. As long as the design does not extend the entire width of the ring, so those grooves above went the entire width of the ring, the amount of space behind the text may be as thin as 0.05. This will allow silver to flow behind the design. So here, this text does not go the entire width, so you still have the strength of the ring out here on the outside edges. So this, I will allow it to be a less space behind the text, as small as 0.05, because again, you have the strength out here on these parts that are a lot thicker. So you could actually be as thin as 0.08 on your band on this. Does that make sense? Okay. Next, grooves or slots cut into the ring. That's kind of a repeat of what I had above. Grooves or slots have to be at least 0.03. That's A. I can get rid of that one, I think. Last on this list, edges that are filleted must be a radius of at least 0.03. So you notice on this ring, the corners of it are rounded off. Those need to be at least a 0.03 fillet. Anything less than that just really won't show up well. All right. Last thing here. There's a sprue base. We looked at that a little bit as that 0.15 cube on your rings. That will need to be incorporated into the design of your ring to create an appealing outcome, and I'll show you what I mean by that. The sprue base needs to be near the largest mass of your ring. On a stadium ring, that's near the top. So on a ring like this, you'd want your sprue base to be up here in this area, so it fills this area first. You don't want your sprue base to be down here on the narrowest part, because a lot of molten silver would have to flow through to fill this larger cavity that's up here on the top. So you want it near that top part. Now the way that looks there in CAD a little bit is, let me see. Can I grab that one? And let me open up that one. Okay. So on this ring, I had a few of these that had sprue bases on them. So for example, this design. These were 0.05 wide. That's back in the day before I changed those to a 0.03 increment, before we got a better printer. So this cube is a 0.15 by 0.15 by 0.15 cube. All I did is I just put it right over top of that design. So it did change its design a little bit, got rid of this interior detail of it. But when you do that, that's just going to be one of those that are filled in. And honestly, to make this a symmetrical design, you could take this block and copy it up to there. So it would be the same on this design as those would be filled in on that if you wanted to do that. This one I'd go ahead and trim off down to the surface of the ring, but this one is where your sprue is going to be attached onto your ring, so you don't have that bad surface with the wax all over the surface of your ring. So that's kind of it on that one, kind of incorporated into the design. On this next example, let me go down the list here. There we go. On this one, I just filled that entire interior of this in. So now what you would end up doing is you take your Dremel tool on this one, you would slice off that little cube, file this all smooth, and then this one section would just be filled in. And that would just blend right into the design, you wouldn't notice it. On this one, I just removed that one entire section. And so again, you'd cut this off with the Dremel, smooth it all off, and you wouldn't even really know where that cube was. On something like this ring, the heart ring, if you had this heart coming out, this heart is 0.2 inches by 0.2 inches, so it's larger than a 0.15 cube. On there, all I would really do is I'd take one of these individual hearts and copy it from there over to there, and just make, whoops, I did not get it put in the correct place there. Well, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But I just get that copied right there, and that would be your sprue base. Your sprue base would actually just be that little heart there. So it does not have to necessarily be a cube. It could be some other design that's a little bit larger. On this ring, all I do there is, if this was out from the surface, I'd use this as my sprue base. I just make this into my sprue base and have it extending out for the design. So it's kind of up to you what you do on that. If you're getting down in your designs, you need some help, I can definitely help with that and help you determine where the best place or best idea for your sprue base would be. And we'll work it out. All right, any questions on all that stuff? The last thing I want you to do, or what I want you to do today, I should say last thing, what I want you to do today now is go ahead and make sure and open up your ring design worksheet and get it finished up. Get your 4 different ideas in there. Make sure that you have written up your 4 different things that are included in there of what you will like about the design, how you would create the design, what do you think challenges of it would be, and what your rating would be. Remember, your number 1 choice gets a number 1, not a 4. People have still been numbering these backwards. Your number 1 choice, your first choice, would get a 1. It's first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice is what you're doing there. Do keep it in the same format. Yesterday I had people coming to me, bringing it to me that had 1 sentence here. It's like, how did you answer all 4 of those questions in 1 sentence? And then I had people bringing it to me to where it was a 2-page long document that was in 1 column. It's like, why didn't you use the template it already had made up for you? So do use this template. You should be able to use it and keep it set up that way. It's all set up there nicely for you, where you just have to reinsert that picture, replace that picture with a different picture, and then change the text to whatever you want that text to be. Yes, question?